Are you sitting comfortably? Then let's take a look at 10 forgotten British children's television shows of the 1970s. Plus, stay tuned to find out just what is going on here. The late Richard Baker was one of the most respected and familiar newsreaders in British television history. However, if you were a child in the early 70s, you may well remember him, or at least his voice, for very different reasons. Richard narrated the much-loved animated children's series Mary, Mungo and Midge in 1969, and then, in 1973, Teddy Edward, which is something of a forgotten gem these days. Each 5-minute episode followed the adventures of Teddy Edward and his friends, Jasmine the rabbit, Snowy Toes the panda, and Bushy the bush baby. There was no actual animation involved. Instead, Richard Baker's soothing storytelling was accompanied by a series of still photographs. Simple but effective, this really made you feel like you were being read a story from a book. Teddy Edward ran for one series of 13 episodes in 1973. I'm sure many of you watching this video will remember with much fondness the brilliant Captain Pugwash, but how many of you remember another animated series from the same production team, The Adventures of Sir Prancelot? John Ryan, the man behind both of these series, also used the cutout animation technique in another series already mentioned today, Mary, Mungo and Midge. First broadcast on the BBC in January 1972 and running for 31 5-minute episodes, The Adventures of Sir Prancelot sees our hero desperate to join the Crusades, only to find that his whole family, including his 2 children, are desperate to tag along. As a bit of an inventor, Sir Prancelot often wins the day by putting his various inventions to good use. All of the voices in the series were provided by the great voice artist Peter Hawkins, who also voiced Bill and Ben, the Flowerpot Men, and all of the characters in Captain Pugwash. One of the most familiar and comforting voices from 70s childhood must be that of the late, great Richard Briers. Although chiefly known as a fine comic actor, Richard's distinctive voice was featured in many children's television favourites, such as the 1970s adaptation of Noddy, The Wonderful Rhubarb, and, in 1976, Noah and Nellie in Skylark. If the animation in Noah and Nellie looks familiar, that's because it was produced by Bob Godfrey, the man also responsible for Rhubarb. Although Richard Briers narrated each episode, the voices of the characters were provided by that man again, Peter Hawkins. Noah and Nellie in Skylark was quite a wacky series. Instead of there being 2 of every animal on the ark, each species was represented by a single animal, but with 2 heads, one always happy and one continually sad. Noah and Nellie in Skylark ran for one series of 30 5-minute episodes. Another very familiar and comforting voice to children of the 70s and 80s belonged to the much-loved and very much missed Bernard Cribbins. Whether it was beguiling us with stories on Jackanory or bringing the Wombles of Wimbledon Common to life, the soft, soothing tones of Bernard Cribbins were an essential part of our childhood soundtrack. All the more surprising then that the Bernard Cribbins narrated Simon in the Land of Chalk Drawings isn't as well remembered, at least in the UK anyway. First broadcast in 1974, the series revolves around a schoolboy called Simon who likes to draw chalk pictures on a blackboard. Whenever he climbs over a particular fence near his house, he enters the magical land of chalk drawings, where all of his pictures come to life. Viewers from North America are likely to be quite familiar with this quirky little series, as it was broadcast in the USA and Canada too. There was even a Canadian television remake of Simon in the Land of Chalk Drawings in 2002. Broadcast on ITV on weekday lunchtimes between 1973 and 1977, Hickory House is one of those shows that tend to slip your memory over the years, but as soon as you're reminded of them, everything comes flooding back. For instance, remember this fella, Humphrey Cushion? How about Dusty Mop, or one of the main presenters on the show, the instantly familiar Alan Rothwell, who also presented another children's television favourite, Picture Box. Hickory House was aimed at preschool children, which is why it occupied a weekday lunchtime slot. If you were of school age, you either had to wait until school holidays to watch it, or have a sick day. Then you could enjoy Hickory House before feeling all grown up and adult by watching Crown Court afterwards. Written by legendary children's television comedy writer Bob Bloch, whose best known work was the iconic Rent-A-Ghost, Pardon My Genie ran for 2 series on ITV between 1972 and 1973. One of those children's sitcoms that appealed equally to adults too. The premise of the series saw a hardware shop assistant called, wait for it, Hal Adden, inadvertently summon a genie from an old watering can. Due to the genie often misunderstanding instructions, much comic mayhem ensues, with shop owner Mr. Cobbledick, played by the wonderful Roy Barraclough, often being the one to suffer the consequences. The part of the genie in the first series was played by comedy great Hugh Paddick, while Series 2 saw Arthur White, the real-life older brother of Sir David Jason, take on the role. Another children's sitcom which went down rather well with adults in the 1970s was the ITV series The Ghosts of Motley Hall. One of my personal favourite live-action children's shows of the era. If my memory serves me correctly, The Ghosts of Motley Hall was often broadcast on a Sunday afternoon, a perfect time slot for grown-ups to also enjoy this excellent series. Although it has never, to my knowledge, been officially stated, the recent sitcom smash Ghosts seems to have been influenced greatly by The Ghosts of Motley Hall. Both series have a large historic manor house as the centre point of the action, a house to which a variety of ghosts from different eras are seemingly tied to forever. The Ghosts of Motley Hall boasted a top-notch cast, which included Freddie Jones as military general Sir George Uproar, Sheila Stiefel as the White Lady, and comedy favourite Arthur English as medieval jester Bodkin. Also along for the ghostly ride was the great Peter Sallis as estate agent Mr. Gudgeon, the only regular character who was still living. Although the DVD is very hard to find these days, there are a number of episodes of The Ghost of Motley Hall, a series I can highly recommend, right here on YouTube. Produced by Southern Television for the ITV network, the charming children's drama series The Flockton Flyer ran for 2 series between April 1977 and February 1978. Although originally broadcast on Monday afternoons, this was a series better suited to a Sunday tea time slot. Telling the story of a family who reopen and run a disused railway line, the Flockton Flyer gave early acting roles to future Blue Peter presenter Peter Duncan and future Only Fools and Horses star Gwyneth Strong. However, the undoubted star of the series was the title character, a steam locomotive first built in 1934, which, in real life, had been part of the opening ceremony of the West Somerset Railway in 1976. Debuting just a few months after the Flockton Flyer, The Paper Lads was another children's drama series from ITV, this time made by Tyne Tees Television. Filmed around Gateshead and set in the city of Newcastle, The Paper Lads followed a group of boys and one girl who delivered newspapers for newsagent Jack Crawford, played by Glyn Edwards, perhaps best known as Dave the Barman in Minder. For those who remember The Paper Lads, one of the most familiar aspects of the series was the theme tune, Back Home Once Again, performed by progressive rock band Renaissance. The paper lads ran for 2 series of 14 episodes between 1977 and 1979. Whether you remember the Saturday Banana or not very much depends on where in the UK you lived in the late 70s. A Saturday morning show hosted by Goody Bill Oddie, the Saturday Banana was produced by Southern Television and broadcast in various ITV regions such as Southern, Anglia, LWT, HTV, Yorkshire, Westwood, STV and Border Television. At the time of the series' debut in 1978, the most popular ITV children's Saturday morning show was Tiswas, produced by ATV, who broadcast in my home region of the Midlands. By 1979, only 2 ITV regions continued to broadcast the Saturday Banana, the rest now showing Tiswas. Despite not being as well remembered as Tiswas, the Saturday Banana inspired the popular 1980s children's sitcom Metal Mickey, as it was on this show that the lovable robot made his very first appearance. Now, back at the start of this video, I promised to reveal just what was going on here. Despite appearances to the contrary, it was all actually quite innocent, and involved the dismantling of a giant banana outside Southern Television Studios. Looking back now, just what were the producers of the Saturday Banana thinking with some of those camera shots? If you feel like taking a nostalgic trip back to childhood, a number of the series featured today can be found right here on YouTube. I'd love to hear your memories of children's television from the 1970s. What were some of your favourite series, and are there any others from the era that you think have been unfairly forgotten? As ever, please feel free to let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed today's video, a little click on the thumbs up button is always very much appreciated. As always, many thanks for watching, and do join me next time for more nostalgic goodness.